Hello, I'm Jim Roberts. I'm the host of Senior Living in Alexandria, and we're here once again on our monthly program. This program is designed for seniors, but not only seniors, but for family, friends, caregivers, those who care about it, policymakers, etc. So we hope our goal is to provide useful information to seniors and the rest of that audience. And we're very pleased at this show to have a very special guest. I'll use his full title. This is Major General Antonio Taguba, Tony to us, and he's going to talk. He's had a rich and varied career. He's retired military, and he's had a rich and varied career, all of which is very interesting. But he's got a particular focus for us for this show, which is what some of the issues are related to caregiving for seniors, and he draws on a lot of personal experience to do that. So we're delighted to have you here, Tony, and we're very glad that you're willing to be with us and share some of your experiences. Let's start a little bit. Give our viewers a little bit of background. What was your career, and how did you get to? I forgot your title. And it's not a small title. He's a community ambassador for AARP. He's got a national franchise that he covers, so he's able to travel across the country and perform his duties. So we'll save that and come back to that, but tell us a little bit how did you get through your career and into retirement, and then how did AARP be fortunate enough to find you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in your program.
Pleasure.
To answer your question, it was by a stroke of luck.
Oh.
I was at AARP on another topic, and then we gravitated to if I knew anything about caregiving. Of course, that was all caused by the caregiving part. Brought me back to when my mother was sick with cancer, and of course my dad was also ailing, old age, going through dementia, a bit of osteoporosis, and a confluence of things that he accumulated over the lifetime. Notwithstanding that he was a prisoner of war during World War II. He was at the Bataan Death March, and after he was repatriated following the war, there was no such thing as having a physical exam. So he never complained about any of his illnesses because he didn't like having to go to a doctor. So the caregiving portion went back in retrospect in my reflecting back at what my family went through. So,
but bring us back to a little bit what did you decide to do upon retirement, and how did that lead you? Many people go into corporate life, or they become painters or writers or whatever. Your particular choice continued on the path of service, and then service through AARP. You cited that it was luck. I think it was AARP's luck, but tell us a little bit more about how that came about.
Well, when I retired in January 2007, I didn't had any plan of having to work full-time, because I've already done my service to country for 34 years. But I had this passion about helping with community, with veterans and families, and those who are underserved and underprivileged children, for that. So it's kind of morphed into the community service piece. But I did work for corporate for a while, which is something that I did not want to do. But if I could tell you sometime over a beer what my wife wanted me to do, which was get my body out of the house and go find a job, right?
That's a typical problem we hear in retirement.
Exactly, because I was not yet 60. I was about 55 when I retired. So that whole idea of working for corporate was fine until I found out that I had a conflict of conscience about doing contract work.
Well, you spent many years in service to your country, and then what I find interesting is that you didn't stop that, but you continued a life of service and found AARP.
Well, I will tell you that I had the privilege and honor of serving with thousands of soldiers with their families, and I had to give back. They made me famous, getting me promoted to general. But that notion of service to country is a dual-edged sword. You serve people that for them to serve our country as well.
Your job your title, as I understand, is community ambassador. Tell me what does a community ambassador do?
Well, they gave me a title. AARP gave me a title of being a community ambassador, but they didn't write down what the duty description
Are you the only
was.
one in the country?
I think there's a few more.
Well, that's a small number.
Small
Okay.
number. But mine was specifically to interact with the community down at the ground level, and communities that they would send me to, like the Bay Area in San Francisco, or in New York or New Jersey, and talk about caregiving.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But they didn't give me the boundaries on how to interact with the community, with caregiving, and that for that matter. So I made up my own, which was talk to them in a sense that we're having a conversation of the dilemmas, the challenges, the hardships of someone giving care for their aging families, or somebody that's disabled in the family. So how do you do that? Well, you basically talk to the caregiver, and for them to highlight some of the difficulties that they go through, because it is a very complex situation.
Do you have a so do they do the scheduling? Do you set the schedule? You know, if I had a presentation, would I call you, or would I call AARP, or how do you work your assignments?
Well, they do set my schedule.
Okay.
And I get a chance to at least review it, and 9 times out of 10 I will accept their schedule, because it's a passion now. It's about sharing what I went through, with my family went through, my siblings and my grandchildren, to include them.
So it's not it's a personal presentation. It's not like there's a script or a format, or that it's your own personal testimonial.
Well, yes, there's a testimonial part of it, but then I also have to cover some of the resources that are available through AARP or to the community or to the state. And they produce a film that has me on it, talking about my experience, my family's experience with my dad and my mother. Another family that did not have any children, and another family whose parents are an individual whose parents are in the Philippines, and he's a sole caregiver for them. The same theme, you might say, but different situations.
How many assignments per week or month would you, I mean, are you on the road all the time doing this, or
well,
you get a chance to be retired? Or?
Well, yes, I'm glad you mentioned being retired, which is kind of like an oxymoron. We don't typically retire. However, they put me on schedule. I travel at least 2 or 3 times a month.
Oh, okay.
Or conduct interviews like we're having today, or just making a presentation and strategizing what's next about making sure that we do the coverage of caregiving as the mission is for AARP.
Okay. Well, are you? What are the rewards from it? You get to meet a lot of interesting people, do some travel, but are you on staff or a volunteer? Are you part of a board, or how does that work?
No, I'm just a community ambassador. I'm the person that goes out and have an interaction with our community and the caregivers. And the biggest reward is that they get to talk about their hardship and their experience, and then they get to share with.
So it's interactive.
It's an interactive.
That's your.
And then for them to draw out, I try to draw out their experience, because like in any community, caregiving is agnostic, has nothing to do with the color of our skin or our economic situation. And we're going to do it one way or the other. It's generational, right? So we're going to do it for our parents, and then when it's our turn, one would hope that our children, if we have any, will do the same for us, and for them, for their kids as well.
Yeah.
It's a fact of life. We can't get away from it.
I've tried to tell my children this, that you know, they better pay attention, because it'll fall on them, not well, at some point, hopefully a long way off. We have to hang on to that. We want to dig deeper into the caregiving part, but we're going to go away for a break, and when we come back, I'm sure our audience will want to hear some of your personal experiences that you relate while you're being a AARP Community Ambassador,
happy to.
National Community Ambassador. Thank you very much. We'll be back.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm David Speck, part of the Speck-Cauldron investment group of Wells Fargo Advisors. Today I wanted to talk to you for a few minutes about just demystifying the stock market. Because for all of the information that you receive about the computer programming and algorithms and all the automated systems, fundamentally the stock market is about buyers and sellers. And at its simplest level, the stock market goes up when there are more buyers than sellers, and it goes down when there are more sellers than buyers. But what really is underlying that is the fact that this is about people making decisions, not necessarily about machines or computers, but people that react to different news and information. And I was thinking as I was preparing for this presentation that when I was young and Eisenhower was president, didn't quite understand it at the time, but for those of you that remember, there were a couple of times during his presidency when he had a heart attack and the stock market went down. I never understood it then, but I do now, and that is that people react to information emotionally. And to some extent, that's really what happens with the stock market on any given day. That if there is information, external, geopolitical information, news about something that causes people to react one way or another, there is in fact a certain kind of herd mentality that takes place. And one of the most interesting things that happens in the stock market and the behavior of individual investors is the studying of why people decide to buy or sell. And every study that's ever been done, and this is not intended as a criticism of any individual investor, but every study that's ever been done confirms that investors, when left to their own devices, will almost always do the wrong thing. They will buy at the bottom, buy at the top and sell at the bottom. The old adage, buy low, sell high, is one that we all understand intellectually, but from a behavioral standpoint, we tend to do the opposite. And the single most important thing about being a successful investor over a long period of time is discipline. Success does not come from guessing right or picking the right day or getting lucky on a stock. Success comes from being broadly diversified, well managed, and leaving things alone. This is the hardest lesson of all when we go through markets that are volatile, up or down, is being willing to step back and leave things alone. But the truth is that when people do talk about being successful as investors over long periods of time, the pattern is almost always the same: buying good value and being patient. It's a tough lesson. In 2008, we learned the value of that, and it was probably a very, very difficult lesson to retain when the market probably had its worst year in probably 90 years. But those that were well-balanced and diversified, that didn't look at their statements every month, which was pretty ugly, and we all went through that. It wasn't an abstract to any of us either. We had the same statements, but left things alone, saw a pretty quick recovery. And I think that's a tough lesson, but probably one of the great things about life is the chance to learn the same lessons over and over again. And that was a good one. Good value, be patient, balance and diversification, and you'll be okay. Good luck. Look forward to helping you any way we can.
Hi, I'm Mary Lee Anderson, Executive Director of Senior Services of Alexandria. SSA would like to wish you a very happy New Year. What's on your New Year's resolutions list? You learn something new, volunteer in the Alexandria community, or get active? We've put together a list of activities to start 2016 off right. The Art League has opened registration for winter classes. There are a wide variety of classes available, ranging from basic drawing to photography to ceramics. Winter classes begin mid-January. Please visit their website or call 703-683-2323 to register for classes. The City of Alexandria is offering Civil War ball dance classes. They're on Thursday, January 7th, 14th, and the 21st from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. at Gadsby's Tavern Museum, which is located at 134 North Royal Street. They're in preparation for the Civil War Ball on January 23rd. You can learn to waltz, polka, and Virginia reel from an expert dance master. The Civil War Ball, which is also hosted at Gadsby's Tavern Museum, will be held on January 23rd from 8 to 11 p.m. You can enjoy an evening from the 1860s in the historic Gadsby's Tavern Ballroom. The evening will include live music, dance instruction, and period desserts. Period attire, either civilian or military, is encouraged. Please call 703-746-4242, or you can email the number on the screen for more information or to reserve your spot. The City of Alexandria's Workforce Development Center is looking for volunteers to help them write content to help them communicate their mission and vision of their programs. This is a great opportunity for someone who likes creative writing and enjoys writing articles. Some of the areas they're looking for help are in writing press releases, writing web page content, and in writing content for leaflets and brochures. If you're interested, please contact Patty Mantia or call 703-746-5856. SSA and AARP are co-sponsoring the January Speaker Series event. This month's topic is Caregiver Resources and Support. This is going to be a very informative session for those serving as caregivers on how to get the support they need to care for themselves as well as their loved ones. Participants will hear from local experts on topics including the importance of making a plan, the various options available for healthcare and long-term support, as well as support for the caregiver. There will be participants from AARP, Insight Memory Care Center, and Griswold Home Care. The event will be held on Saturday, January 9th from 9:30 a.m. to noon at Emmanuel Church on the Hill at 3606 Seminary Road here in Alexandria. Light refreshments will be served, and the event is free and open to the public. You can RSVP online at Senior Services website, www.seniorservicesalex.org, or by calling 703-836-4414, extension 110. If you want to improve your balance, coordination, and strength, join the Power Plus classes offered by the City of Alexandria. Classes include aquatic exercise, endurance, functional stretching, gentle karate, racquetball, and pickleball. Please call the Classes and Camps office at 703-746-5414, or you can visit their website at the address on the screen below. We hope one of these January activities will help you start 2016 off right. And Happy New Year!
Well, we're back. I'm here with Tony Taguba, retired Major General, U.S. Army, and we're having a wonderful conversation about all of his things that he's doing in retirement in terms of service. His life is continuous service. But what we want to talk about this segment is something, and this is a preface for a January 9th segment. It's the speaker series from Senior Services, and that will be on caregiving and some of the issues that relate to that. But and as a way to lead into this, in this conversation, Tony,
Right.
You mentioned before the break that you have had strong personal experience and have used it as the basis of some of your work as a community ambassador,
Right.
in terms of not just you relating your experience, but helping others to be comfortable with theirs and maybe mentoring or coaching them in how to deal with that. Tell us more about your personal experience on caregiving, because that's a major part of this theme and
Right.
of interest to our viewers.
You know, way back when, just as a preface, caring for our parents or loved one we consider that as family care.
Right.
But then all of a sudden this new word caregiving came into focus. Well, in 2006, when we were having a family reunion at Fort Belvoir here close by, families, my parents came all the way from Hawaii, took them 3 days, almost 2 days to get to Virginia, because my mother was 80 years old, my dad was almost 90. And she wanted the family meeting, and so we all assembled in the dining room table. And she's not much of a speaker, but then she spoke and she said she was dying of cancer.
Oh.
So it was sort of, well, it's not what isn't sorry. It was a shock to all of us to hear that, because we thought that because she was active and she was my dad's caregiver, that we didn't have a plan. We never discussed what's going to happen if she went to, if she had gotten ill.
You and your siblings and families?
Right. There were 29 of us, right,
hearing
the
your
whole family.
Grandmother, aunt, mother,
Right.
etc.
The whole
Okay.
thing. And my dad was...
That's a tough session.
That's a tough session, and of course, my dad, of course, was not any better. So we went into crisis mode.
Mm-hmm.
and we were in a reactive mode of how are we going to do this? Because there were 7 of us kids. I'm the farthest one away in Virginia, and everybody was stretched from Virginia all the way to Hawaii. And so we thought we had a plan. Well, we didn't have a plan. We had a reaction, which was basically, we'll take care of you, Mom. Dad will take both care of you, and don't have to worry. Well, they just kind of looked at us, bewildered, thinking, okay, I wonder how the kids are going to do this. But that was not their concern. It was our concern. And basically, we didn't have a conversation. We went into you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And in every family, there's always 1 or 2, there were 7 of us kids, that's going to say, well, I can't help you. But we were so lucky we had 2 in our family that says, I can't help you, my 2 brothers. So that reduced the plan to 5 kids. Mm-hmm. And because we didn't exactly go through the analytics of saying, Mom, what exactly is your session with chemotherapy? Dad, what is this and that? Because they kept it to themselves. And again, so we were going to drawing straws and putting ourselves on a schedule, not knowing what the impact was. Because chemotherapy with my mother was not a one-time session.
And they were in Hawaii, and the rest of you were scattered.
Right.
So it means a plane trip
Right.
on the time you're on duty.
We had jobs. All of us had jobs. So that created a bit of tension of when is your turn and how can you come, and while I'm teaching, my 2 sisters, of course, had young families. And then there's me, because my 2 brothers were not available. And it came to the point where the tension increased, not with my parents, but among us.
Yeah.
The arguments, availability, I can't take any more leave time, what's their schedule like? I call that discovery learning. It was a constant discovery of how are we going to be planning all of this, to include planning for her funeral. Mm-hmm. And how do we mitigate what we've learned with my mother, with my dad, who lived 3 years longer. And he was a lot worse condition because of dementia. He was not ambulatory, and we had to find a way on...
Were they living in their own home at this point?
They were living in their own home.
Oh my, okay.
Right. So, and they were very persistent on not leaving the house. And they still were rather lucid about it, except for my dad.
So you didn't have you thought you had a plan.
Right.
You had a willing group of people.
Right.
And yet there's holes in it.
A lot of holes.
So what did you do? How did you solve that?
The holes were financial.
Okay.
Because we thought our parents were financially stable.
Oh.
Because they're on fixed income. My dad was retired. But they were running out of money. So that's one. Second is the medication that they were taking. And what services do we have in Hawaii? Because we spend a lot of money on books, going to Barnes and Nobles or a bookstore, say, oh, how do you do this with senior care? Well, had we known AARP.org/caregiving existed, we wouldn't have gone through this mental gymnastics of having to deal with that. Big lessons learned on that, because the financial aspects of it, it wasn't just that, it's the resources, the time available, modifying the house so my dad could take a shower or we could bathe him. My mom, who was unable to walk because of chemotherapy, that type of thing.
You think that so you worked out a plan and you shared the load, you helpfully were able to do something about the financial burden. You have daily care, long-term care, financial planning, just how to run a household. But you all contributed to that on a as best as you could shared basis.
Sure. Even with the home care nurse for my dad, that was not enough. Time is a constant, because both my parents, now we have 2 ill parents, mom and dad, need 24/7 care. And that takes a great amount of
if looking,
pressure.
and you had mentioned earlier that they both have passed away, which I'm sorry that. But if you looked back on it, what did you learn, or what would you have done? What else? Is there anything else you could have done in terms of better, maybe obviously better preparation, but in addition to that, what'd you learn from that?
Well, you know, in any family, it's pretty normal that we think our parents are well.
Right. You hope they are.
Well, I hope we are. But at the same token, though, is that we should have started that conversation way back when, before my mom announced that she was dying of cancer. You don't want to have a crisis there. And the 5 things that we learned through AARP was have the conversation early. It's a very unpleasant topic over the dinner table. Like, Mom and Dad, you know, we're worried about you. What do you want us to do in case something happens to you? Well, the first thing some would say would be, why are you asking us those questions? Are you worried about your inheritance? That's not the...
Well,
that
can happen.
That could happen. You know, I mean, we're okay, we're fine, we got all this long-term care, blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't have all of that. And we knew that. They were relying on the military medical system. So, and then, you know, looking around at what is possible in terms of resources, you know, or how many kids do you have that could contribute? Look around, and then you make a plan. And more importantly, caregiving can be stressful.
Well, I was going to say that you figured out a plan for them, but it's got huge impacts on every family, but in your particular case, you've got 5 scattered siblings, 2 of whom inevitably have to sit out, and yet some resentment. Why aren't you contributing? I mean, there's a lot of things that can go into the whole family dynamics.
Well, part of that is that since they need attention 24/7, the only time you could actually leave to do anything, but not too far away, is when they're sleeping. So, you know, or if, you know, and the timetable, their schedule might be disparate. But, you know, I run, so I'm able to just do a quick run and do marathons and stuff like that. So, but my sisters were basically the nurturing type, that they cannot leave my parents alone, even though we tell them, take half an hour or go do something. Go shop for about an hour or 2 locally down the street. And
were they both in Hawaii, so the distance was less of an issue?
Right. I have 2 sisters that live close by in Hawaii. I had 2 sisters in Arizona. And there's me.
Okay.
Okay, so the schedule, and ultimately I had to leave my job. And
to do caregiving.
To do caregiving. And
what would, so you mentioned one lesson is start early, be prepared, get a plan, have
start
knowledge.
That conversation.
Start the
It's
conversation.
not a one-time conversation. Because you're either going to be there and then take your family obligation. But I've run across families who basically are paying their way out of caregiving for parents because they're too busy with jobs, you know, that type of thing, or they're far away with families. So I think you can do that.
Rather than personally care, they would somehow find a way to afford providers. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, and I think you've given a glimpse into your personal experience and tied it into useful things that people can learn from.
But one thing as well is if any of our audience here, our viewers want to know, if you want to know everything about caregiving, just go to aarp.org/caregiving, and it's a one-stop shop.
Will they find you there?
Well, they'll probably look at me for 5 minutes and say, oh, what is this film he was talking about? And there's a film in there about caregiving.
Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
That's the end of another show. We will see you next month. We're into the new year, 2016. I wish you all good prosperity, happy times, good health, best wishes. Prosperity, again, I mentioned. And we will see you again next month on Senior Living in Alexandria. Thank you very much.